Following on from JDK 8, which was the previous long-term support release of Java, we now have JDK 11, which is the new and latest long-term support release of Java. There's been quite a few changes in Java 11, both to the language and the features, as well as to the licensing and distribution of the JDK. If we leave the language and feature changes to one side for the moment, I want to go through changes to JDK 11, its continued development, distribution and licensing. So here is how everything is organized for Java 11. There's an open source repository, which is essentially the OpenJDK 11 source code repository. And they do have a website. On the website is essentially a list of all the different repositories that exist within the Java ecosystem. So you have different versions of Java and so on, and there are some links to the different mailing lists and so on. From this source code repository, a number of vendors derive binary builds. One of the vendors is Oracle, obviously, which creates the Oracle JDK binary build based on the OpenJDK source code. The Oracle JDK can be found on the Oracle website, and this is the JDK which most of us have been using up to now. Oracle also creates a second set of binary builds from the same OpenJDK repository, which cannot be found on the Oracle website, but instead are hosted on java.net. So there are two different builds of exactly the same thing. The only difference between these two builds is the licensing. The one on the Oracle website has an Oracle license, which is referred to as Oracle Binary Code License. And that means if you want to use that in production, you have to pay for it. But the one on the java.net website is GPL license, which means that you can use it for free. And if you go to the Oracle website to download the JDK, the Oracle JDK, you will see a notice which says that there's been substantial changes to the licensing terms, and if you do want to use the previous license, which is the GPL license, you should use the java.net website. So I've just made this screenshot a little bit bigger so you can actually read what it says. I will come back to the licensing in a bit. Oracle is not the only vendor that provides JDK binaries. There are other vendors and organizations that also create binary builds of the JDK. There's a community project which creates Adopt OpenJDK. So they check out the same source code and build binaries and host it on their website. So you can go to their website, choose your platform, the version of the JDK that you want, and download it and use it for free. Another vendor is Red Hat. They check out the source code from the official OpenJDK repository. They add their changes to the source code. I believe they develop their own garbage collector, which they bundle with their build. So they use that to build their Red Hat JDK binary. And then there's Azul. That's another vendor which does the same thing. They check out the source code, build their own binaries, and make it available. IBM also does something similar. So if you go to the IBM website, you can find the IBM JDK. And Amazon is also contributing to a certain extent to JDK 11, but what they're doing is only covering JDK for their own Linux distribution, which is heavily used if you are on AWS services. So you kind of pay for the AWS JDK when you use their services in a way. It's a hidden cost. That aside, you could even create your own binary build of the JDK. So you can go to the OpenJDK source code repository, check out all the source code, create a build and use it, and not rely on any of the vendors or community projects and so on. So what has changed in the Java 11 JDK is the licensing. The OpenJDK binaries that are built by Oracle and hosted on java.net are GPL licensed. The Oracle JDK binary, which is hosted on the Oracle website, is now released with a different license called the Oracle Binary Code License, or BCL for short, which is what I'm using in this diagram. This license is different to what you're used to accept when you download JDK 8, 9 or 10. So up to this point it's been a different license, and now the license is changed. Adopt OpenJDK, they still provide the GPL license binaries. Red Hat JDK still provides the GPL license binaries, and Azul JDK, which calls their JDK Zulu, they still provide their binary under GPL license. The new and changed Oracle license for Java 11 requires you to pay Oracle if you use the Oracle JDK in production. So if you download the Oracle JDK from the Oracle website and use it in production, you have to pay Oracle. But if you download the OpenJDK from java.net, which is again built by Oracle but hosted on java.net, then it's free to use in production because it's licensed under GPL. However, once the next version of Java is released, which is version 12, Oracle will not backport updates or patches to the OpenJDK repository for Java 11, nor will it update the binary builds that are hosted on java.net. So this leaves you with two options, really. Either at that point you will upgrade to Java 12, which means a lot of work, and it's not in the spirit of having a long-term support version of Java. Or you continue to use Java 11 despite the risk of security vulnerabilities and lack of bug fixes. So I'm going to repeat this for emphasis. Oracle is not planning to support their GPL licensed JDK once the next version of Java is released, which means no backporting of security patches or bug fixes to JDK 11. New patches and bug fixes will only be applied to the next version of Java, which is Java 12. This will essentially make it meaningless to use the OpenJDK binary builds that are hosted on java.net as the Java version which has long-term support, because practically there is no long-term support for it. Red Hat and Azul are also likely to charge you in some form to provide that level of support and, backport or make their builds available with the backport of security patches and updates. So this leaves it up to the community to backport the fixes to the source code repository, which can then be used for building binaries by anyone really, including yourself. The good news is that Red Hat has allocated a number of software engineers to take on this task. So in conjunction with the community, Red Hat will backport the bug fixes and patches to the source code repository. So this is the OpenJDK source code repository that we're talking about, the official one. And from these repositories, the Adopt OpenJDK community and their website will make binary builds available for you. So essentially, the community and Red Hat, they backport the patches and all the updates and bug fixes to the source code repository, and from there Adopt OpenJDK will build binaries and make it available on their website. Obviously, Red Hat and Azul and Oracle will also do something similar, but that will be for the paid customers, or there will be some sort of arrangement where customers that are paying for support will get access to those. So if you're a student and you want to use Java for learning, you can still use the Oracle JDK from the Oracle website. You can use the OpenJDK from java.net, and you can also use the Adopt OpenJDK. Either way, if you're not using it for production, then you don't have to pay anything. And if you're planning to use Java 11 long-term support on the production system, then the only realistic option is to use the Adopt OpenJDK if you want to use it for free. Alternatively, you can obviously always pay one of the big vendors, either directly for the JDK itself or indirectly via some sort of support agreement that they have in place, or maybe through infrastructure costs that hides away the JDK cost, for example, like AWS.